So we're back for part 2. We lost BZ, and we weren't sure if...
And then we found her.
Yes.
She was wandering down the road.
And so at least we do know that the other recording turned out okay. So we're just going to pick up and continue on. This is going to be part 2 of a sense of the breadth and depth of the trafficking.
Yep.
Yeah, because it is so all-encompassing. It's everywhere and everything. You look, see, touch, smell, taste, do, and everything that we have around us, all the schooling, all retail, anything 3D that we're doing, all the court systems, all the law enforcement, all the everything. It doesn't matter. All the everything was designed specifically to capture the energetics as well as the physical.
Okay, I'm frozen again.
Sake.
No.
Okay.
Stop it.
I don't know what, and I think it has to do with what we're talking about, first of all.
It does, yes. Because we had no trouble talking before, which we needed connection to be online when we were just talking, and then we decided, okay, we're going to come back and record, and then it goes kaflooey.
Right.
Right at the exact moment.
So that's not an accident, and that's why I said it's so huge. It's sort of mind-blowing to think about, and that's why I think that I said in the very first of the other video that how do you, and it's not even just informing, it's even when you think you know,
right,
how pervasive and all-encompassing all of the trafficking has been. That's just like you.
Well, because part of it is because, when you talk about sex trafficking, or you talk about pedophilia, which is basically rape of a little baby or a young child or a little older young person. And then trafficking for older. I mean, it's trafficking of every kind. You've got sexual and the whole. It's every. Put any word in front of the trafficking, and yes, it's that too.
That's what I mean. But it's even broader than that.
Much broader than that. But that's a little. It's hard to stomach, but it's a little easier to comprehend because. Hopefully you'll think that that's abhorrent and not that's something against someone's free will and not to do, except that it's all against the free will because there was all the trafficking was done by false misdirection and illegal and contracts and conscript. We were all actually conscripted into the whole service to make it work. Most of the trafficking, that's why it's in quotes, is not recognized because you have said it before. It's the way things work. It's the way things are. And then you have right on the heels of that. The perpetrators, if you're going to, from a linear aspect, going to call it that designed the whole system and perpetrate it. Of course, we're perpetrators too because we're complicit in. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. Is that the next chestnut as well? Humans are bad. There's a propensity. There's some are good, some are bad. No, that's a fallacy. That's part of the false construct. That's part of the whole manipulation and the role to play. And, you know, we all have negative things and all that kind of stuff. Yes, from a linear perspective, in a linear brain that functions that way in duality, because that's part of the polarities to the duality. You know, there's good and bad, there's black and white, there's, you know, light and dark, all those kinds of things. But the being, and this is what we're talking about, the being which is being trafficked, and that's why it's a much broader thing than even someone who goes way down, and we talked about that before. I mean, there's many beings out there who are doing amazing digging and work, and they make videos or pictures or whatever it is. They're doing a whole range of things, and the creativity and the passion and the depth that they're going through in one area is just off the charts. Absolutely. And even with that fierceness, even with that dedication, even with that focus, they have not seen, either because they haven't been able to see it or because they just haven't looked from the focus and passion they were in this one tunnel, one supply chain is basically, you know, of the trafficking, that they haven't seen it. And again, it's harder. That's why it's so insidious, because it's harder to notice. Hence the things of making things that are more acceptable, of changing the whole, you know, acquiescence to these things that which were once taboo or once unthought of, or once, you know, you don't do that. Well, you know, little kids like to have, you know, sex with Sleepy Joe and all that kind of stuff. You know, no. But if you legislate it and you change the thing under the guise of, and that's the other reason that it's so insidious, is because the human being part, the linear part, the dualistic part, has given up fully. They've acquiesced fully to their own sovereignness, to their own consciousness, to their own ability to be awake and aware and notice what's going on. They've given up their ability and their choice to be free thinking. And instead, you put a little, you know, like a red flag with a bull, you wave a little something, orange man bad, or whatever else it is, and they go off on, and it's completely unconscious the way that they do it. And if you played a tape for them to watch it and just and you know, just say, oh, well, we want to show you some people, and there was a way to maybe not let them recognize, and maybe they didn't recognize themselves, that they were doing it, they'd go, well, that person's not making any sense, or that's, you know, or what happens a lot is you change the script and you say, well, there's this, what would you think about this kind of comment or this quote or this activity, and, you know, and you feed them who it's portrayed by. And you can do this with either quote unquote side, right? You can do it with one political party, or which is another trafficking, because that's just baloney.
Yeah.
And you can get them all head up about something, you know, because that's the waving of the red flag, until you then show them, not only tell them that actually it wasn't this one, it was this one that said that, or you show them because they're live on camera, you know, and no matter how much you want to claim, you know, selective editing, well, if it's the being and it's coming out of their mouth, it's kind of hard to do that. Anyways, then it's like, wait a minute, and that's where the cognitive dissonance hits. So that's one of the reasons that I was nudged to do this, is because this is coming, this is tsunamis worth of stuff. And yes, the first pebble that's pushed the water, that's, you know, made the tsunami start rolling, is Epstein and trafficking, but it's tied to all of it. And you will see the bigger and bigger and bigger waves, which will come afterwards. Not very far, like right on the heels of it, it's just going to keep rolling, are the ones until you get to the real one, which is the biggest outer ring of the trafficking, which is that you are the value, and the entire system is predicated upon that.
Yes. And so, wow, that actually brings I've been, over the last 2 weeks, I've been really absent from both my channels a lot, doing some really deep diving, right? And I was looking at some of those self-worth issues that have to do with value too, actually, right? And there's probably not very many of us on the planet that don't have some issues in some way or another with value of self.
Yes.
That too, I know with all of me, has been by design, that we in all of these systems that have been put into place, that granted on the most expansive level, we did this, we all participated, we're all complicit, like you said. But this is that ties into it too, because we have to be able to see that. Oh wow, I just got so very dizzy about that. That value of self is much broader than even what I just said. What I was looking at, the little me, okay?
Right.
Over the, I really,
being.
last year, yes,
being.
the being, the little, but that's not, and that's what has been targeted over and over and over again through these systems, for one thing.
And what you're speaking of is the internal unwinding and unbinding.
Right.
You know, and another thing that, a couple points that when you were talking reminded me that would be helpful, I think, for people to kind of maybe poke in a little at the picture that we're painting here to help them get some frame of reference, or there's a lot of beings, many, get caught up in, well, wait a minute, I'm not complicit, and then I'm not doing, I don't like this, I don't, but you're not missing anything. You're not missing anything. And this is not happening in a vacuum, because we're all transmitters. So it only takes one. If one is awake and is transmitting, and you're, referring to templates being made, and that everybody has, that's why we are now at this crescendo moment where we can have the change of what happened on the 4th in the United States. It was the first Independence Day ever.
Well, we need to do a short conversation on that too. There's a lot of.
So it was a true Independence Day. And no, you haven't since 1776 been independent. You've actually been, property of the crown, and you actually were just released from that. That's a whole nother topic. So, it goes on. And one of the things that on the complicit, people kind of have a hard time getting their head around, because again, it's like the trafficking. They see, okay, human trafficking or child trafficking, okay, that's bad. But this is just how we go. I gotta work, I gotta pay the man, I gotta do, right? They are the same venues, the same supply chains, the same moving of commodity that's taken from raw material, being the being, right? The eternal being, and in the embodiment phase, and putting it through the supply chains to become product, to become value-added products, all those kinds of things that we talked about in the first part. And then you have people who say, well, okay, so now those guys, gals, are bad. She's an evil witch, and he's this, and there's that, and they're bad. So if we just get rid of them, then everything will be good, except that we are, there's that old Justin again, you keep we keep coming and playing with, and that we are all one, and we are a singularity, and we're transmitting. And so if we don't have full transparency on everything, on every layer, that's why as you move to the higher dimension, there is transparency. Not transparency just simply as an anathema doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that, some people think, well, but I don't want so-and-so to know what I'm doing. First of all, that's not a reaction that you would have when you hold that energetic frequency vibration, because there is honoring and deep respect for oneself and all others. And so there is no feeling, there is no actuality, there is no tangibleness of the crossing of those kinds of lines. It just means that nothing is hidden and there's no need for it to be veiled. One of the things, I was having a conversation the other day with a couple of friends, and I think I described it in a fairly good way to help them understand, is when we all went forth, not only just in this incarnation, but in the eons that we would do, is to go forth to know source. And we went out and we to the farthest depths that each of us individuated beings could go. And we did all sorts of things, and we went to the very outer depths, edges, however you want to hold it, and played all roles. So all of us have played dark, despicable roles. All of us have played all sorts of things because that was how we did. And when we went to those roles, and we are not missing anything, and it's not happening in a vacuum, right? We then had, at different points and different things, whatever that we were doing and how we were doing it and who we were doing it with and all those kinds of things, we then had choice points of could we feel that we were further and further and further away from source and the truth of who we were, and now making a change to shift our energy frequency, to bring up our consciousness level, to expand our heart again. And we've made that turn around. That's why this is all coming down now. That's why it's possible for this to all come down now, because this that is all coming down now is being brought down by all of us who have gone to those outer reaches, who have played the most despicable and vile, and however you want to categorize it, roles, and turned around and had expansion and had heart opening and had consciousness raising, now have come full circle and are coming back around to bring all of this down. It couldn't happen without that.
No, I agree.
So when you saying of the shoot the rat bastards, we were a rat bastard.
Well, I'll be honest with you, BZ. For me, what the biggest thing that's happened over the last 2 weeks is, for whatever the reason, and I know what some of them are, but I've always suspected that, and I feel very much more strong about it now, that what you're describing is a linear take on that.
Yes, very much so.
Right.
But I got to use linear words to hope to.
Right.
And still,
right.
I'm missing.
Right, and I get that.
I
get that, and I do get that, because right for me in my course of expansion, that I had to feel into the linear and try to get that. And now there's been some things that I've witnessed and experienced where I have long suspected that past lives and everything were all happening at once.
Yes.
That's how the now works.
Yes, that's why everything is now. It's all now. It's right. All now in this dimension, in this level, in this frequency, in this vibration. There is no then, now, there. It's
right. And for me, that's how it is, that these different aspects, when you say we have played every single role, we not only have, we still are.
Yes.
And that too is part of what that is makes it all very complicit.
Yes, because we're multidimensional, and right now where we are, and various beings at various levels are starting to grasp that. maybe not grok it yet, but grasp it and notice it and change it. And that's what the headline is. It's not Epstein. It's not, who he knew or how many seats on Lolita or blah, 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 blah. Yes, all of that is very important. And all of that is part of the process of unwinding and unbinding. But the trafficking, so again, in the complicitness, just people will have a lot to deal with on various levels. And some, it depends on how you hold things and where your heart is in expansion and opening and your integration processes. But when you start to grok just how complicit you were in and all the things you did in all the myriad of ways, just to linearize it a little more, in this particular lifetime, that it related to the trafficking and the slavery of a financial system. The pain and suffering and anguish and torture and cruelty that you visited upon your ones that you loved and all these kinds of things is enormous. And all that needs to be grokked, and it doesn't have to be, delved in and taken apart, but that's what I'm talking about. All the trafficking. It's not just this one thing or that one thing, and it's all of it. And on the one hand, because it's the linear nature of the human to think, well, there's a little bit of a fascination or a pissed offness or a sadness, or there's different ways to do it because that happened to that group over there. But kind of like that's why people like to watch a scary movie, watch this, because they say, well, they escaped, so they can feel better in there because it's all trafficking. They know that on a visceral level, they just don't know it on a linear cognitive level. What I'm talking about is when you get into, when all of that is unwrapped, there is no just that segment, just those kids, or just those women, or just this, and it was just the satanic things, and it was just that and just this, because it encompasses every being.
Right.
And that's how we bring it all down.
Right.
And love is how we bring it down. Is there justice of the universal sort? Yes. Is there accountability and responsibility and liability? Yes. But that's for everyone. And when you widen out and get to the truth of what each being is, which is love, and they've gone down this path and played this role, when it comes back to the truly conscious awareness and grokking on a multidimensional level, on one level, it's hard with the language, one level, what they've done, what they've played, what role they've done, you couldn't devise, again, I'm just talking in linear placeholder words, but you couldn't devise a punishment. Or let me say it this way, whatever punishment you could possibly devise that you think is, that'll really show them, or that'll really get them, or that's the thing, is nothing compared to when they reach that moment, if that's the moment they get to and they choose to, a heart opening. So you thought of the most vile, the most dastardly, that, you pull every skin cell off one at a time, until they're a puddle, that's your thing. That's nothing compared to what they have to go through themselves, because they're an eternal being that's love.
Right.
So killing them, well, we're infinite beings, so that releases them. They're saying, so again, it's hard because on the one hand, it's something that's very linear. Yes, in this tangible, touchable, the way things are or work sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, period, full stop. And it's a full toroidal, multidimensional thing at the same time. And we're now the brains at all of our bodies, all the different bodies that we have, and all of the components within them are changing, are on a fast track evolution, metamorphosis, transformation. Essentially, you can use all different kinds of words depending on how you hold it and understand it and all that kind of stuff. But it's all changing. So your physical brain is actually changing into a multidimensional capability brain in a flesh and blood embodiment. And so all of those things, that's what integration, when we talk about integration, that on the bigger level, that's what we're talking about, because these concepts that are kind of flat and this way have to also be pulled out into the multidimensionalness. Well, and not make you go crazy, and not, have you go freak out or implode or explode or any of those kinds of things, and then have the heart keep opening, and you integrate it and you move to what's really so.
Well, what you just said there about that for me was very important for me to help me grok the whole multidimensional thing and how it is that we are multidimensional. And what I mean by that is being infinite and all one and yet singular. For me, that's what linear is. In order to experience things in this specific density, in this specific way, there had to be a step down situation. I think I said this in one of my other things. There was a conversation that was taking place between Magenta Pixie and Todd Medina, and they were speaking about the monad and what that is. And all at once, I saw it and I felt it and I grokked it for the first time on a level that was huge for me. That was actually what that experience that I had, that I shared with you guys. That was, I saw and experienced my monad. Mm-hmm. The huge portion of what actually was me, and it can be terrifying. Like I said, what I was seeing, and I was sharing with Lisa today. It made me think of our play we did where you were showing us the pictures, and I said I saw chaos, the kind that's right before creation, and that is kind of what I also felt is the exact same kind of thing with that monad thing. It's a step down of the all that is,
yes,
fractally into what this is. Right. This tiny little portion that perceives on a linear basis through these two eyes. This is how the all that is. Talk about eye of the needle.
Right. And talk about the other side of the eye of the needle is that this, everything you just said about listenability is now actually this thing right here in this physical body, because it's all changing. So it could all be housed, all be conscious, all be here now, to use another one of the, kind of phrases that people throw out, because that's how it's happening. And so someone just said, okay, well, I kind of get that, but right now on the ground, how do we deal with it, with all of these changing? So kind of stuck between the revelations that are coming forth, even if it's just only one little segment. And you're saying it's just one little segment. We've got all these other stuff, some tools to do it. So one of the things I would say, as always, is the noticing and let yourself, allow yourself, choose for yourself, appoint for yourself, put yourself in the role as the one that's the touchstone for navigating things, not out there, not some being or something or cue or whatever else it is. Those may be catalysts, those may be little signposts, those may be you speaking to you and highlighting something that you can then help to facilitate navigating or get more information, whatever it is, but it's you, not them, to use that linear word. That's number one. Number two is to realize that, and this goes back to the question that you started at the very beginning on the first half of this, before we were so rudely disconnected, and then, I think the beginning of the second half, is how do you get beings to, people to see all of this that's going on, the totality of the trafficking, right? And part of that is to realize that what you're seeing unfold right now is all theater. So, and on a large portion of it, intentionally so, the linear aspects are intentionally doing the theater so that you can start to engage your multidimensional looking at things, noticing of things, cognizing of things in the moment. So there are lots of examples. A lot of people have said, and I think they may have stopped saying that right now, but with Epstein being arrested, but nothing's happening, or Trump is missing this, or he doesn't know about this, or why are there still chemtrails? Because it's a big thing, and from a linear perspective, because you have to pull all the threads apart in certain ways, and if you get off and you're not there to pull threads, then it's kind of hard to do your job of pulling the threads. So it would be helpful if you pulled the right ones first. But or that certain characters that have been on the stage in DC, because that's the way it has been set up, to the main thread pulling begins, and that it all comes down from there. They didn't do anything, or they were sellouts, or good thing they resigned, or good thing they left, or and the Justice Department has been one of those places where all things happen. No. But again, that's not looking at it in a clear way. That's not actually noticing what's going on. That's not realizing that there's so many roles and aspects that had to be played so that all of the talk about the breadth and the depth, because it's not just the trafficking. It's not a certain kind of trafficking. It's the trafficking. So you can have Sessions is the one much maligned. Well, there's, again, the old phrase of taking one for the team, where you go as misdirection, you go as incompetence, you go, and this guy has a lot of names on his back that got slapped there, and that's not the case at all. And there's someone a being who absolutely, and whether he would describe it in different ways than I'm going to describe, but absolutely knew his role, absolutely knew his mission, absolutely, with fierceness and devotion of an open heart to totally expanded consciousness, knew the role to play in the theater to navigate through all of this. And again, because it's the trafficking, not just certain specific aspects of trafficking.
Right.
He was off working on those and not calling attention to what he was doing. So, and then you could say, well, yeah, he wasn't doing anything. Nothing's happening. He was useless, yada, yada, yada. No, because when you'll see, again, it's Toronto. So when you see the full circle, he's just one example, but much maligned example of what's going on, you'll begin to realize all the ins and outs. The reason that I bring attention to this that's so important is because that's helping you. This on a linear level, physical, tangible, right, in the news or on social media or whatever, there is a tool for you to begin to use your multidimensional brain, sight, sensing, feeling, how all of it's not 5D chess, it's, quantum chess in the sense that it goes on from, bazillions and snillions of galaxies and here and that and the other thing, because it's all happening at once. And as we move through all this, as we unwind and unbind all this, we're going to be thrilled that, as I said at the very beginning of the part one, that we've built those muscles of doing the inner work and tearing down all of these things, like some of what you were talking about, Sheila, asking those questions and the limiting of self and all of that, because that's going to help us in not only in the building of the new, but we've already built a lot of the new. We just don't, on a linear mind here, see that we have, but we have. And the more that we, because it's all at the same moment, it's all happening right now, because that's what multidimensionality is. The more that we, you could say, build those muscles, the easier, more effortlessly, more expansive, more joyous we can step fully into the after party. We can step fully into the new earth. We can step fully into the good stuff. There's people hold it in lots of different ways. And that's all happening right now. We can't, each individual being on their own unique path cannot get there until they get there in that way. And they're the only ones that's deciding that they do, when they do. Everybody will, but it's at their choice. And they're the only ones who, they, using their terminology of holding them back from, are the ones that are, in quotes, holding them back from.
Yeah, no, I finally got that too. That's why I stopped beating myself up, especially over these past couple of weeks here. It's like, I don't know. There's for me, finally grokking the whole multidimensionality portion of it. The fact that it is all happening, all now, all at once. Everything is all simultaneous, and that it is only the little portion of me that's still in that linear portion of me, because I'm not always in this linear situation anymore. Sometimes I'm not linear at all. But that portion, it happens exactly as it's meant to for me. And it will for all of us. It is happening for all of us in the way we designed it, even though we think it's not. It is exactly as we designed it, each one of us. And that's what I was going to say was, and that's why compassion,
yes,
is. And I thought again, this is another part that I thought I had about compassion. Okay, until this past 2 weeks, this really deep stuff and some other experiences that I've had, I see a much more expanded view of what compassion really is. Not, I mean, because and I also get the whole intellectual understanding. That's what I had, was an intellectual understanding. Remember, I started this whole thing out, but I don't get it. I didn't even really was sure I could get compassion. To be honest with y'all, I wasn't quite sure I even was getting that on an intellectual level. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh, okay, I get it. But that, even at that, I held this frequency of judgment around compassion. Not gonna lie.
Right.
But when you take everything as the now moment, multidimensional, and not only am I what I purport to be in this moment, this little being sitting in the chair, I'm also the being, if we are all one, I'm also the being that's, doing these horrific things out here that, everybody wants to kill folks for, right? I'm also that too, because it's all at once. And that brings a whole different grokking to that even.
Yeah, there's two things I want to add to what you just said, or that come up for me. The first thing about, the linear and all that kind of stuff, from the totality of us, the being that each one of us is, from the totality of us, linear is not last place. Linear is not bad. Linear is not small. Linear is not, oh boy, thank God we shook that linear off. It's not held that way. It is just as spectacular, just as fantastical as, fifth dimension, sixth dimension, non-embodiment, pure energy, all those kinds of things. It is experiences, it has abilities and capabilities, and is an amazing ride. And the new thing, the third being, the new being that we're creating is the multidimensional and knows it, gets it, plays with it, jazzes on it, yahoos with it, in a physical body all at the same time. So you're a linear, multidimensional, all right here now, got it going on, and you're playing in that whole way.
Thank you for that, because that is exactly correct. When I really when all of that started coming in, that I grokked the whole, what the fractaling down, the monad down portion of the all that is fractaling down into what we are, right? Compacting, if you will, folding in on itself. I am the TARDIS, hello, kind of thing, right? and when I really got that in that moment, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. I'm still kind of dizzy. I can't even focus on the two of you right now. Because it makes linear actually and I think this might be one of the reasons that it's coveted, because the ability to take that chaos that we talked about, that happens right prior to creation, and step it down into, from omnipresent and omnificent and all of those things down into, oh, here's a pen. I am looking at a
grain of rice.
That's right.
That is a feat.
Yeah, and the delicious cosmic humor is that, people go, oh, I want to meet my star family. I want my superpowers. We've got the biggest box of superpowers going on, and the rest of existence is going, wow, they're good. I mean, wow, look at them use it. I mean, wow, right? So it's because of that stepping down, because of that condensedness, and there is no manual, there's no this, it all got thrown out in this thing. And that's what I'm saying is, so the imploding into you is this magnificent flowering from within you in that compressed down space, which is, I know I've said this at least 2 different conversations we've recorded, but it's the big bang in the real thing, in the real way that's happening.
Yes. And that's why I think that it takes my breath away, actually, to think about even the title of this, because of what it begets for me, what it represents. Yes, a sense of the breadth and depth of the trafficking. And yes, it's all there, but it's also so huge. It's like the minute you start thinking about it like that,
Yes.
Yeah.
And that that kind of hand signal you made there will be a number of beings who will be doing that.
Mind is blown.
Yeah.
Tangibly so.
Yes.
It's happening already.
It is happening already.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys. Was there anything that either one of you wanted to add to this one before we ended this one?
Well, I had the second point, but it flew out, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
There's so much.
It'll fly back around in another galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. We'll have many more of these conversations.
Yes. Okay, well, we will definitely have a way for everyone to get in touch with everyone on the screen right now. Ways to get in touch with each one of us are always in the show more section of every video that we put out. And I would encourage everyone to subscribe if you haven't already. That's greatly helpful. And hit the notification button if you'd like to be notified anytime these videos are uploaded. And I guess that's really all I have for now.
We'll link part 1 and part 2 together in each
Yes.
video, and then I'll put them both on the IAV on the same post.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you, ladies. Till next time.
Much love.